All right, well, welcome. My name is Tiffany Hansen. I am the Outreach and Engagement Manager with Luna Language Services. Luna, if you're not familiar, is a translation and interpretation company. And we work really closely with employers who hire immigrants and limited English proficient or LEP workers to ensure they can overcome language barriers to work together. Most of the employers that we work with really heavily are in the manufacturing and logistics sectors. And so we also have a really strong partnership with the Morales Group, who, if you're not familiar, is a mission-driven staffing agency that embraces immigrant workers and also heavily supports these sectors. Today, we will be hearing from Cynthia Hobbs, the Outreach and Partnerships Manager for the Morales Group, about the benefits of working with immigrant community members. And she will also be sharing tips for recruitment practices within the local immigrant community. Then I'll be talking about identifying where language barriers may manifest in the workplace and understanding reasonable solutions for bridging those language gaps. And then finally, we'll hear from Jim Suber, a region HR director at GEODIS, about his personal experience working with a multilingual team. If you have any questions at any time during the session, please go ahead and place those in the Q&A function while they're fresh in your minds. And then we will try to get to those at the end of the presentation. So now it's my pleasure to hand it over to my colleague and friend, Cynthia Hobbs, who works incredibly hard to build a network of resources to help remove barriers to employment for our immigrant and LEP community members.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you everyone for joining us today and welcome. As Tiffany mentioned, today I will be discussing the benefits of working with immigrant community members and recruitment practices to help attract those immigrant community members to your open positions. So I want to share a little bit about the Morales Group and three key components that are at the root of everything we do and help guide us on a daily. And that is one, our mission, which is building better futures, one story at a time. Our vision, which is staffing with a purpose. And our three core values, which are be humble, be courageous, and be a light. And overall, these are our whys. It's what we consider on a daily as we're serving those coming in our doors, working with our employer partners, and serving the communities around us. So I want to start off by sharing the benefits that we have seen of working with individuals from the immigrant community as we've partnered with different employers within our own Action warehouse. And something that we see is that they help bring and build a dynamic and diverse welcoming culture. And that's through the different pitch-ins that we've seen with the different foods they love to represent, where they're from. We've seen music being blasted so they can kind of jam out as they're working through the day. The way that they look to support and just be open and help others coming in feel like they belong. And it really creates this essential culture that people want to come back to, that individuals want to be a part of as well. The other benefit we've seen of working with individuals from the immigrant community is that they're open to new opportunities that will lead to better futures. Essentially, they're here because they were looking for a better and safer life. They're looking for new opportunities. And so they're often come in and they're kind of eager, like, I'll take any job, anything you have. And of course, we do a better interview with them to really assess what will be a good and successful opportunity for them. But we love the attitude we see with them, just the light that they bring in and the eagerness to want to learn and grow. And the other thing that we see is they have and they come from diverse backgrounds, and those diverse backgrounds bring new perspectives and ideas to help business grow. Often, they're thinking outside the box, they're thinking differently than others. And so being open as an employer to hearing those ideas and creating a platform where they can share those ideas can be really supportive and really functional to your organization. And overall, they're resilient, they're flexible, they're resourceful, and they're a vital part of our communities. So they bring a lot of great benefits, as you guys can see. And the more we do to support them and create welcoming environments for them to grow into employment opportunities, the stronger our businesses can grow and the stronger our communities can support each other as well. When it comes to recruitment practices, some of the things that we look to do is we want to represent, we want to build, and we want to support. So we want to represent those that we serve. And with that, I mean hiring individuals from those diverse communities. So as we're having people come in, a lot of things we see is language barrier. So having someone within your organization that they can easily communicate with and can help get them through either the application process, help them through an orientation process, an onboarding process, it speaks volumes to them because then they feel welcome and they're open to sharing their experience with others. Another thing that we like to do at Morales Group is translation of information so that they can clearly understand is really important, whether it's your flyers, sharing your opportunities, orientation information, even when we're looking at our marketing strategies. Those are things we take into consideration, is how can we make this as accessible and communicate with them as best as possible, right? A lot of individuals here at Morales Group are part of those immigrant communities and we know what it's like. So we want to share our perspective and ensure that we are providing the best possible experience. And part of that is ensuring that the information we have and share is easily readable. Next thing we do is we want to make ourselves, as I mentioned before, as accessible as possible, and not just do translation of material, but we've also partnered with different community organizations to go out into the community and do conduct hire days. So, we have a couple of branches here in Indianapolis, and a lot of times individuals, may not be able to make it to us. So we go to where the community is. And we've done partnerships with the Chin Center, the Shepherd community, to go out and host hire days. They're already stepping there. They're already coming to an organization, building that they trust. So we want to meet them where they're at and where they feel comfortable. Next, I'll step into building community ties. And those are a vital part of who we are as an organization. So we don't just want to be, a staffing company here. We want to be a vital part of the communities that we're in because we are members of those communities. And so we look to connect with local organizations that serve and provide vital resources. And so we really form strong relationships by supporting programs, listening to what's going on in the community, and learning how we can support those. Another part of who we are is getting out in the community and serving, right? I think no one has a better time than when we're out and about volunteering here at Morales Group. And so being out and engaging through service opportunities is a great way to connect with individuals within the community and build trust and build those ties. And then along with serving, we like to participate at local events as well. Right? You're going to events that community members are attending, participating in. It's great to be out in that and the culture you see and the ties that you build. You get to know the community, and you also get to know other organizations that are supporting the communities you're trying to attract. So that's always a great way to get out and recruit some individuals as well. And support local and vital resources is another important part. Right? So kind of, when you're thinking about sponsorships, sponsoring community and workforce programs that support the immigrant community grow and kind of skill up, level up to earn, certifications that will help them obtain a higher or better paying position is always key. As well as you think about your food pantries, your ELL classes that are offered, your high school equivalency classes that are offered. Those are important resources that are out there that should be supported and that you should look to connect with and build a relationship with as well. Because the more you do that, the more that as an employer, you become educated in the resources that are available. And then we take that knowledge and we also share it with our workforce. So if they're ever in need of a resource, we know and can connect them with the right partner organization. And another way we look to support is we know that often a lot of our community organizations don't have a huge marketing budget, right? Because they're allocating a lot of their funding towards the programs. So we like to promote and share that information, as I said, one with our workforce, but also through our marketing efforts, whether it's through our social media, sharing information to individuals walking in our door, or even sharing the information out through our texting platform as well, is always a key way to support and get that out. All in all, I've worked with individuals from our immigrant community, have helped recruit, and I can say that the best way, I know a lot of times, is get out in the community, get out, build relationships, build those ties, make sure that your staff represents those that you're trying to serve and recruit, and make yourself as accessible and as welcoming as possible. So we want to make sure here at Morales Group that anyone that walks in our doors wants to come back and feels like they can easily just step in our door and ask for the help that they need. Thank you. Thank you guys for listening, and I'm delighted to hand this back off to Tiffany, who works directly with Luna clients to help them to understand how to overcome language barriers. She'll be talking about identifying where language barriers may manifest in the workplace and understanding reasonable solutions for bridging the language gap in the workplace.
Thanks, Cynthia. And I am going to share my screen. So I think this will automatically take your presentation down. There we go. All right, so what I really wanted to talk about are, multilingual communication strategies for HR managers, who I think are the majority of who we have joining us today, and just really focusing on where language barriers might manifest in the workplace and just how you might overcome those. So first, if you're not familiar with Luna Language Services, we are both a translation as well as an interpretation company. We categorize anything that is written as translation. So that could be documents, pages on your website, transcriptions for videos, or captioning. That could also include voiceovers for videos. And then we categorize anything that is spoken or signed during a live conversation as interpretation. There's a few different ways that we deliver this service. So today you'll see Naomi here, our ASL interpreter, who is virtually interpreting. So that's a perfect example of that. We also provide interpreters like Naomi for on-site services. And then we have over-the-phone interpreting. This is an on-demand service. It's essentially like a language hotline that you can tap into whenever you need it. And we do have over 200 languages available there. So with that service, it can be very convenient in the field. And I'll talk about a few ways where some of these services can be applied. The last service delivery platform we have is called Video Remote Interpreting, or VRI. This is typically utilized for American Sign Language services. Essentially, it's the American Sign Language version of what over-the-phone interpreting might be like for you. So if you have two people in a room and one of them is deaf and uses American Sign Language services, essentially you can get an ASL interpreter on your smartphone or tablet or computer. and they can remote in via video to help facilitate the conversation. I will mention on these, one of the things that's important to think about, especially for all y'all, is pricing and budgeting. For phone interpreting, that service is charged by the minute. So that can be very budget friendly for, especially for very short conversations. For the on-site and virtual interpreting, those appointments are charged by the hour. So you'll typically want to utilize those more in a situation where you have a longer conversation, and we'll kind of get to some of those examples. So I did want to start out with just a few basic facts about Indiana's language demographics. So we do have over 100 languages represented in our community here in central Indiana. Also, at this time, about 1 in 20 Hoosiers are foreign born. So thinking about if you're considering language access in your company, that can allow you to tap into a significant portion of the population for your workforce development efforts. Over 13% of Marion County residents. So for those of you who are joining us from out of state, Marion County is where Indianapolis is located. So over 13% of Marion County residents prefer to speak a language other than English in the home. I wanted to bring this up because, and I'll come back to this again later, but I want to drive home that English proficiency is absolutely a spectrum. So you may be able to have a great conversation with someone in English, but that doesn't mean that they have technical vocabulary in a language that's not their own, or maybe that they actually learn better in their native language rather than English. So just thinking about the percentage of the population that prefer to utilize English or a language other than English in the home, those residents may also prefer to learn in a different language as well. And then the last bullet here is Indiana has received refugees from over 160 countries. And we do have one of the fastest growing immigrant populations in the nation, and that continues to be true. So again, just driving it home that this is definitely a workforce that may be helpful for you to tap into. So with that being said, it can be really helpful for you to do some research if you don't already, to know your company's internal language demographics. So this may be an opportunity, if you haven't done this already, to survey your own team members about, either asking them what their native language is, or possibly asking them if they have additional, language skills in addition to English, or just asking them the language in which they prefer to learn. Again, remembering that English proficiency is a spectrum. And while some folks may be able to speak English really well, or with some level of proficiency, that may not be the best language to communicate with them in. So thinking about when you're very first interacting with potential team members and thinking about the recruitment process. So you can really think about expanding your reach of your recruitment materials by considering translating some or all of those materials into the languages that you're targeting for your workforce, or just that are found in your region that are more predominant, if you're just starting on this journey. So that could be career information on your website, and I'll show you an example here in just a moment of what that could look like. That could be printed outreach materials that you take to recruitment events, social media posts and marketing graphics for recruitment, captions on marketing videos that talk about how fabulous your company is and why people should want to work for you, event flyers. And then the last one I want to drive home are job descriptions and job applications. So translating these can really signal to someone that you are very interested in speaking with them. And a pro tip here is making a note that on the job description or on the application, that you are willing to provide interpreters for screening calls or interviews. And this may drive up your engagement with the LEP population. I work with a lot of deaf and hard of hearing community members, and especially it's challenging because most people just expect them to provide their own interpreters. And so sometimes you may make someone feel like a burden if they ask for that when it may be helpful for them. And this is true for our foreign language speakers as well. So if you can make that investment and just make it part of your process rather than making it something that's extra or something that someone needs to request outside of the norm, then that again may signal to them that you're ready for them, that you're ready to talk to them, and that you want to make sure that communication is clear. So this is an example from the Morales Group website. Now, I specifically pulled their job seekers page, but literally their entire website has this option, which is an awesome thing. So here you'll see on their homepage, they have a language option here at the top. So once you click on that, it gives you a drop-down menu, and I believe there's 6 languages listed there. Here I've shown a screenshot of this exact same page, but just after I've clicked the Spanish button. And then when you scroll down on this page, you'll see they've literally translated every portion of the website, which also includes the job descriptions and the application process. So if you want to see best practices in action, you might explore their website and just kind of see how they've got that set up. And that may be something that your company could consider as well. Another example here from one of the Morales Group job descriptions is mentioning language in the requirements. So here they have for specific jobs, there are no language requirements. Again, this signals to folks who may not feel comfortable applying for a position if it says strong English skills required or English skills required. You could list this as there are no language requirements, or even make it a positive of bilingual skills preferred, or other English or other language skills are a bonus, but listing it there can make people feel more comfortable reaching out to you and scheduling an interview. I wanted to show you also an example of a recruitment event poster that it's bilingual in Spanish as well as English. So the Indiana Latino Expo hosted this job fair, and all of the information here is listed both in English as well as Spanish. So they have it, rather than having 2 separate posters, they did one marketing piece where the language was side by side, but I wanted to show you what that might look like. So then thinking about those recruitment events and making sure that if you're going to market those events as, or if you're going to provide, if you're going to try to recruit from the LEP community, you can increase your impact of your recruitment efforts by making sure that when those folks attend, that you can communicate with them in live conversations. This could include career fairs or career readiness events like resume building, interviewing, or any kind of job skill trainings. And a pro tip here is if you're going to provide interpreters for these events, to make sure that you're advertising the information about those events in the languages in which you're going to provide interpreters. And then on those materials, outwardly state that you'll be providing interpreters. And I'll show you an example. So Luna worked with Indie Pride actually over the past several years with their annual career fair to make sure that the career fair is accessible to both the Spanish and the American Sign Language community. So They've translated the main marketing poster into Spanish as well. And then here, I've blown this up, but you've got this listed here, and it's listed on the Spanish poster as well. But we're outwardly stating that the event will have Spanish and American Sign Language interpreters present to create more language access for community members. And I remember the first year that we did this, I worked this event, and it was incredible to see, especially the deaf and hard of hearing community, who I think there were about a dozen deaf participants that showed up, because ASL interpreters are almost never automatically just provided for events like this. And so the fact that they could have a real live conversation with a recruiter was, really outstanding. And I remember speaking with one of the recruiters that was there, and he admitted to me, he said, Tiffany, I just realized that I don't think I've ever had a live conversation with a deaf person. If I've met someone, we've just written back and forth on pieces of paper. And he admitted, he's like, I can't believe that I didn't think about doing this so that we can have so much more productive conversations with folks. So kind of an eye opener for him to see it in action. So this could be a great way for you all to make sure that those recruitment events are as far-reaching as possible. So then considering those live conversations and thinking about the interview process. So you can utilize a service like on-demand phone interpreting for screening calls or for very short in-person conversations. So this could be great where if you have an option on your application for someone to check if they need an interpreter and maybe give them language options, then you can go ahead and have an interpreter on the phone when you give them a call to schedule their appointment. You can also utilize an on-site or a virtual interpreter for in-person or conversations over a virtual platform and for longer interviews. Again, that pro tip here of just making sure that if this is something that you're willing to do, an awesome way to make sure that that is utilized and as effective as possible is to note in your job descriptions and outreach materials that you're happy to provide interpreters for interviews. So the next step is to think about onboarding new team members. So you might consider translating vital documents, which when I think about vital documents, those are documents that you provide to almost every single employee. And that may include an employee handbook, an onboarding packet, or benefits information. The benefits information is hard enough to understand in English for those of us who have been speaking English most of our lives, let alone if there is a language barrier there, or if someone comes from a country where the healthcare system is completely different. So explaining how insurance works to someone who doesn't have insurance in their home country, maybe having that information printed out in their native language may be able to help them to process that on their own again later as they're reviewing those materials. If you're going to invest the time and the money to provide these valuable resources to your employees, this is a great way to make sure that all of your employees have the opportunity to understand what's available to them and how they can utilize that. And here, one suggestion is just, if this is something you're considering, a first step may be to ask your benefits provider if they will provide translated material about your benefits packages. This is just an example of a benefits guide that we recently translated for Sunset. And I like to see that side by side because it really does drive home the impact of someone seeing a document that is in their native language and how much it speaks to the fact that you want to make sure that they know that that information is accessible and inclusive for them. So now thinking about training, and with training, of course, especially in logistics and manufacturing, alongside that comes safety considerations as well. So I would suggest considering translation of your training materials in those main languages to ensure your team members are learning in the best language possible for them. Again, if you're investing the time and the resources into great training materials, you want to make sure that those can be fully utilized by your employees. This could include training manuals or videos, and videos could be captions or voiceover options. This could be glossaries of common industry or company terminology, and continuous safety training. Again, in the manufacturing and logistics sectors, this is something that I know is incredibly important. And we do have some clients that every single month, they send us their safety training PowerPoint, and we translate that into the language groups within their facility so they can make sure that that information is fully absorbed by their team. Here, I also made a note about thinking about safety signage around your facility. We did have one major client who had a very robust Burmese population that they were working with, and they started seeing some of their safety numbers falter just a little bit. And when our director of language services did a walkthrough of their facility, she noticed that all of the signage on the machinery and around the walls were only in English. So this was a great opportunity for us to provide that same signage in Burmese, which if you've seen the written language of Burmese, the alphabet is very, very different than English. And so once they put those new safety signs up, then their safety numbers started getting back to where they were before. And then the last note here is to consider providing interpreters for training sessions. So I did get the chance to work alongside Cynthia and the Morales group and Vincennes University, who did a forklift training session that was bilingual. So they had both English as well as Spanish speaking participants, and they wanted to make sure that the Spanish speaking participants could get all the information in their own language. So Vincennes University still provided this, the presenter was still speaking in English, all of the written materials were written in English, but we provided a simultaneous Spanish interpreter that could speak into a microphone, and all of the Spanish speaking participants could hear what the Spanish interpreter was saying. So they were absorbing the information both in English, but also in the language that was best for them to learn in. And every single one of those Spanish speaking participants passed the written English exam and the certification course with flying colors. So perfect example of language access in action. And then thinking about managing your ongoing relationships. So regular communications with your full team and making sure that those communications and materials are accessible and inclusive in those different languages. That could include announcements or employee engagement materials, ongoing training, and skill development materials as well. One thing that I want to bring up for HR leaders as well, a lot of folks are going to start out by utilizing team members that are bilingual in their own facilities for interpretation support. And that is absolutely the best place to start. But you also want to have a resource in place that's a third-party resource to ensure those confidential conversations, and to ensure that by chance, if those bilingual employees are problematic, that your LEP employees still have a way to communicate with you about that, and they don't have to go through that bilingual employee to do that, right? So for quick conversations or for small disciplinary conversations, you could use that on-demand phone service. For more important conversations or larger disciplinary discussions, this could also look like large team meetings or perhaps company events. You could use on-site or virtual interpreting for those as well. Here I've listed another pro tip, again, especially for the manufacturing and logistics sectors where your people may be out in the field or, distributed heavily across a large facility. Utilizing on-demand phone interpreting can be great for your supervisors to be able to basically have a language hotline programmed into their cell phone so that they can tap into that. If they are communicating with a team member, they can see that that team member isn't quite understanding what they're telling them. They can get that immediate and brief language support, no matter where your bilingual employees are or where your interpreters are throughout your facility. And here I did provide, especially as we've been so virtual, thinking about large team meetings or trainings. We've been so virtual the past year, and that looks like that may continue. I wanted to mention that programs like Zoom do now have interpretation functions that you can add to your account. So you can hire an interpreter to plug into that. And then your team members can listen to the session in their own native language over these virtual meetings as well. And the last thing I wanted to point out was just thinking about your employee development programs. So you can engage your entire team with cross-cultural and inclusive employee engagement programs. If you're going to, again, invest time and resources into that, make sure that those programs are accessible and inclusive in those languages. And then also think about increasing your retention and expanding your employee development by considering English as a learning language class. So if language is the only barrier that there is for some of your team members to elevate their skill sets or learn new skill sets, then consider providing them with those skill sets, right? Again, a pro tip here, think about English as a language learning class as any other professional development program that you would typically provide during work hours. We do see retention rates in those programs drop if those programs are offered outside of normal work hours. So including it during their normal paid time is going to be the most effective. And that is all I have for my presentation. We'll bring Cynthia back up, and Jim, if you want to go ahead and pop on here. There we go. So now we're going to have Cynthia, she's going to introduce Jim and talk a little bit about his background, and then, allow him to talk about his personal experiences working with a multilingual workforce. We will have a few minutes after their conversation for any questions that you may have. So again, continue to place any questions that you have in the Q&A function, and then I'll read those off with the remaining time that I have. So Cynthia.
Cynthia, I think you're on mute.
Realized it as soon as I said the first thing. Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. It's my pleasure now to introduce you to Jim Suver. He's the Human Resources Director for Geodes in Plainfield and Clayton, Indiana. Jim has worked in manufacturing, grocery distribution, retail, the nonprofit sector, and third-party logistics. And he is a strong proponent of community involvement and social responsibility. He has led over 30 partnering efforts with various community groups, including the Red Cross, the Martin Center, Chin Center, Urban League, and Habitat for Humanity. Jim has also partnered with Luna Languages Services since joining Geodis in 2017. So thank you, Jim.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. We'll kick it off here with our first question for you. What are some barriers Geodis has seen when it came to employees who were limited with their English proficiency?
I think we've had three I'm going to say 3 barriers. The initial contact and communication may have been difficult, not impossible, but just difficult. Walking into a place of business when you're not from the United States and your English is limited is a tough task. And until you've done it, you don't realize how hard it can be. So we just try to make sure that when people come by, that they feel welcome. So, my recruiting area is a nice, welcome, open area. My recruiters speak several languages. And also, if we need to reach out to Luna for a language that we currently don't speak, our phone contact with them is probably within a minute. So within 60 to 90 seconds, we can get Luna on the line. Another barrier is comfort at work. Different cultures have different norms. So until people really get to kind of feel themselves in the area, it's difficult for some. Not all, but it is difficult for some. And then the last I would say is being able to obtain information. It's difficult to ask questions if you don't speak the language or if you feel like your question isn't important. So we try to make sure that our teammates, whether they're agency teammates or they're GEODIS teammates, that they feel important and that their concerns are truly important. So we do a lot of outreach. We do a lot of engagement with our teammates to just make sure that they're comfortable and feel at home.
Thank you for all those pro tips. How did Geodes offer support to help their workforce with limited English proficiency overcome those barriers?
So nearly all of our communication is in at least 8 languages. Our RF guns and iPad communications are in probably 8 to 15 languages. We have digital signage that we use all throughout our facilities. We have 8 facilities in Plainfield and 2 in Clayton. So we use digital signage for things that are going on, like engagement events, open enrollment, birthdays, celebrating someone's productivity. We use Microsoft Translator in startup meetings, and that's really cool to use, but you have to be able to read. So if you cannot read the language, it's not really helpful, but with most of our population, I'd say about 50% can read the language of their origin and their country of origin. And we also offered ELL classes, so English language learners classes. We offer that in 2018 and 2019. When I first joined GEODIS in 2017, one of my first contacts was Luna, because I saw that about 70% of our population were not born in the United States, and I didn't want English to be a barrier or to be something that stopped us from being great. So it took about 6 months for us as a team to get our ELL classes together, and really just take a look at what we want to do, how do we want to achieve this, what's our goal, what's end state and end game. And in 2018, we had our initial classes. We had 3 classes, all beginners classes. And in 2019, we had beginners classes, 3 beginners classes, and 3 that were a continuing education class. We had planned to have a level 3 in 2020, but we were unable to due to the pandemic and pandemic restrictions. Our classes, I thought, were very thorough. We had our classes were 12 weeks. They were paid classes, so it was during work hours. And we had, we had a lot of fun. A lot of people made friends from other cultures, and you just saw a lot of things are universal. I mean, smiles are universals, universal congratulations is universal. Sharing of food, sharing of pictures of loved ones is universal. So our teammates grew and we grew as a company.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that experience. What are some of the benefits GEODIS has seen from recruiting and retaining a workforce with limited English proficiency?
I think we have a happy workforce and they like coming to work for GEODIS, and that's super important, especially when you have so many choices right now. We get tons of referrals from the community because they know that you can come to GEODIS and you are not going to be required to speak English. We have approximately 34 accounts in our 10 buildings, and only in 1 account is English proficiency required. And that's because it's such a specialized business. It's for medical devices, and you can't send the wrong medical devices. We don't take a chance on that. So some level of English proficiency is needed. It's not perfect, but some level of English proficiency is needed. In the other accounts, we have many folks that don't speak English at all, but they're still comfortable coming to work. I think a sense of community is what we've seen. So, when you go in one of our break rooms, you'll see 150 people, of course, spaced properly, but it's 150 people and 15 languages are spoken. That's a lot. And to have as few employee relations issues as we have is just a testament to people really enjoying where they are and enjoying GEODIS. I think that we look at it as a competitive advantage rather than a disadvantage. You have two paths that you can take when it comes to English and English proficiency. You can say, woe is me, and my folks don't speak English and this is bad. Or you can say, it's great that our folks can come here from a different land and be promoted and do meaningful work and come to work every day and earn a living and be proud of who they are. And I mean, it's a great thing. So we look at it as a competitive advantage. And also it's an opportunity to learn about one another. I was not familiar with Burma as a country, and we have hundreds of Burmese folks that work for us. So they let me know about the country, about Myanmar, about their journey to the United States. We have folks from Central America, South America, all over Mexico. People don't realize how vast Mexico is. They think that it's Cancun and 2 other vacation spots, and it's just not. There are mountains of Mexico. It's surrounded by water, so people don't realize it's not just a vacation spot. It's a country. It's a land. So you learn a lot about other folks, and it's been great for us and great for our teammates.
Well, thank you. You guys are doing a great job over there. I will say, as I'm out and about in the community and meeting with potential candidates, one of the first requests I always get is GEODIS. A lot of times, their family members work there and they spread the word about the great culture you guys have created, and they want to be a part of that.
Excellent.
You've shared some great tips today, and I'd like to know, are there other, any other tips that you can share that you would recommend to other employers to follow or to create success in recruiting and retaining a workforce with limited English proficiency?
If you're really serious about it, just learn to embrace your people. I have recruiters that speak several languages, and Luna is, a hotline away. So if a person is having any type of difficulty, I can give them a call. We use interpreters for our recruiting events. We use interpreters for our new hire orientation. We use interpreters for open enrollment, 401k planning. Our benefits documentations are in 20 different languages. So, just because it's hard, don't give up if that's what you really want to do. And that's what we decided we wanted to do. And also put yourself in someone else's shoes. If we were flown 3,000 miles away and said, good luck, get out of the car and go find a job and go figure it out, it would be a lot of trepidation and a lot of folks that would just give up. And our folks are a testament to not giving up and finding a home at GEODIS. So we've embraced our folks, we've embraced our circumstances, and we love it.
Well, thank you, Jim, for sharing your insights and sharing how GEODIS has been able to create success for a workforce with limited English proficiency. Like I said, you guys are doing a great, phenomenal job. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. This event has been recorded, and Tiffany will be uploading the recording to the Luna Language Services YouTube page later today for your viewing, or if you'd like to share with anyone that may not have been able to make it. If you registered for the event, you will receive a follow-up email from her with a link to that recording. If you'd like to share with any of your colleagues, please go ahead and do so, as well as our contact information. And please feel free to reach out to either of us if you have any questions or need any additional support. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.